Okay, going live. We're glad you guys are here.
Glad to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mo.
Hey, Ricky, how you doing?
Good. The doctor is in.
Yes, we are. We're in. It's March. Shoot, it's almost April. Can you believe it? Second day of spring, another palindrome day.
What happened to March?
I don't know. But you know, when you look at backwards and forwards, it's something that we should all know backwards and forwards, right? Inside and out.
Yes.
Keep going. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Doesn't matter. Right? Yeah. I know. I spent the day with them. Well, first, we should introduce it, but I spent the day with Haley Dinnerman and Melissa, and we went to the White House and did a briefing this morning.
Love
and
it.
then we went and did a briefing on the Hill, and we met with a bunch of Congress people to get more money for breast cancer. So
Beautiful.
great day. And so I'm here at Haley's house.
Yes. So she came into the city to see me this time.
I know. And this is kind of Haley's show. She brought her friends. You know, she's been working really hard on For the Love of My Girls and finding great partners. And these are some of our great partners. So you go.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Haley Brown. I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships for Tuck. So thank you to my lovely mother and Dr. Mo for having us today and giving us space to talk about Black breast health, as it is something that is near and dear to my heart as somebody who someone told me today that they didn't like the word caregiver, they like the word care support.
Yeah, the caregiver's gotten a lot of
recently I feel like I've heard that more and more, so I'm gonna roll with that. But I was on the care support team for my mom, so pretty much been in the breast advocacy space for a while. But I think for me now, I'm trying to figure out what are all the things that I wish I had known when my mom was going through her journey, and how can I educate young women on those things, and making sure that, like, you know, because it's just you just don't know what you don't know what you don't know in that moment, right? And so you have to like go out and be proactive, and you're not necessarily in the mental space to be proactive because you are on the care support team, and you might be dealing with your own emotions around it. So in the process of trying to make sure that I educate young women with the tools that they need to know, we came up with For the Love of My Girls, which is its new blossoming campaign under Touch. And it's been really, really fun to really figure out what young women need to know and how I can get that information to their communities. For Love of My Girls is all about empowering, equipping, educating young Black women with the tools that they need so that they feel just empowered in these conversations with doctors now, right? We should all feel like we can go to the doctor and be a part of the conversation. And I want to just make sure that young women have the tools to do so. So in figuring out all of the things that come with this campaign, I was like, not going to reinvent the wheel here. There are a lot of people out here doing really, really great things in this space and in this education space. And I would love to partner with them. So one of the first ones I found was Know Your Lemons. And it's just such, like, I've loved working with them. They're great. Irene and Corinne, like, you guys are amazing. And I've just really enjoyed finding people who have a similar mission, right? Breast health education, and are really working to make it fun and edible to the average person who might not know any medical jargon whatsoever, right? And just find the information to be presented in a way that makes them want to act and not necessarily shy away from these things. And that's what I really found with the Know Your Lemons app. I personally use it. It tells me right the week after my period to check my girls and get to know my girls. And it's really, really great. I find it to be completely user-friendly and awesome. And so through working with Know Your Lemons, I was like, do you guys have any trainers that would like to be on the show? Because when you do the Know Your Lemons training program, you then can train others. And it's this really awesome pay it forward model that I think is reaching a lot of women internationally. Like Know Your Lemons has a huge international pull. So I'd love to hear from Nakia and Aisha and hear what you guys, a little bit about you and how you got into this work, because I think that you guys have trained many people at this point, and talk to me about, I guess, one, how you got into this work, and then two, your experience with Know Your Lemons.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Nikia, you can go.
No problem. No problem. Okay, my name is Nakia Watson, and I'm the founder of Mammogram Access Program, and I'm based in Freeport, Grand Bahama, the Bahamas.
We should
Yes,
be at her house today.
Right. Right.
and the weather is great. I started this organization shortly after Hurricane Dorian. I set it up whilst we were all in lockdown. Yeah. And the reason why I did it is because the island that I live on is constantly being impacted by hurricanes. Okay. It's about every 3 years, like a 3-year cycle, we get a major one.
Wow.
And when I started my career in 2003, the screening rate at the organization that I was working at was doing like around 2,000 women a year, which is pretty good. Okay. And then Francis and Jane impacted the island. There were 2 hurricanes, 2 weeks apart. We didn't
Wow.
have
Yeah,
power,
remember that.
electricity.
Remember that,
Remember
right?
that? Yeah. We didn't have electricity for almost 2 months. Okay. And
Oh my God.
at that point,
Island. Wow.
yeah, we had to get help from Florida to restore our
Incredible.
electricity. Okay.
Wow.
And that was the first major event of my career. And what happened is, of course, naturally, the whole entire island paused. And so there was a rebuilding phase that we had to go through, a cleaning and renovation and trying to get the commerce back on the island, people back to work, children back to school. That took a long time. And so whilst all of that was going on,
Was that before COVID?
that was in
Mhm.
2003.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but that's the normal. That's what normally happens when we have a major event. There's always a pause, and you can factor in about 4 to 6 weeks for there to be a cleanup and a renovation and trying to get everything back online. So what happens is the mammography program also pauses. Okay,
Yep.
it also pauses. And what happens is women become so engaged in trying to get their house back in order, trying to feed their children, trying to get them back in school, that they totally forget about their screening. And so after every hurricane, what we will have is a pause, a drop in the screening rate, and no recovery. No recovery. Okay, so we went from 2,000 to like about 1,600, and we dropped down to 800. By the time as we got to Hurricane Dorian, we were doing like 200 women. That's a 90% drop.
Wow.
And so I started this organization to do a full court press. This is a cycle that we're going to constantly be in. Okay, so somebody has to be focused on screening so that when we go through this cycle, I could be out there on the mountaintop saying, hey, we still have to concentrate on this. Yes, I know you're doing this, but I still need you to do this, and to remind them to come in. And even if they can't afford it at that time, we fundraise so that if you have a financial need, we will meet you where you're at. And that's what my organization is all about. Our strategic imperative is awareness and access equals early detection. Okay. And so Know Your Lemons is helping me with the awareness. I put the awareness first. It's the new AA. So they're helping me with the awareness. Although we started and we went right into our screening program. That was the first program that we put online only because we went through Hurricane Dorian and then right into COVID. All right. And some of the first women that came and reached out to me were actually breast cancer survivors because they understood the importance of consistent screening, and they were on hold and they were on pins and needles. They couldn't afford it, and we didn't have a machine because Dorian took out the machine at the public hospital, took it right out.
Wow.
So they were the first women to really reach out to me.
It really destroyed the hospital. It destroyed the hospital.
It destroyed about, what, 60% of the hospital? Yes. The only thing that stood was the emergency room, the lab, and x-ray. After the storm.
Could you imagine like that happening to your hospital?
That was it. Samaritans first came on board. They helped us out a lot. And so a lot of our facility was across the street in a tent type hospital. So working there, I'd have to bounce between the main hospital and the tent hospital at night. It was quite an adventure, to say the least.
Wow.
I mean, there are so many challenges, and the rate of breast cancer there across the archipelago it's high, and so what you're doing is so very important. and to start with younger women, right? Because there's a lot of hereditary mutations there as well. And I think that that's something that it's not on your radar. You know, even when your family members get breast cancer, like, oh, you know, somebody else, oh, it's grandma, oh, it's somebody older, but it's affecting more and more young people. So this is just really, really something. And for all the people who don't want a mammogram, imagine if you couldn't even get one, right? You didn't have the option.
Right.
The
You didn't have
machine
the
you had
option.
was gone.
It
That's
was
exactly
gone.
what I was thinking. I was like, gosh, like at least I have access. Like just, you know what I mean? Like that, like you know what I mean? Like that's not an impediment to me getting one done, you know, like can I imagine what it would be like
Right.
if I wasn't in my country? Like
Right,
that's
How blessed are
Exactly.
we? Right.
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
get
We
it.
did have a private machine on island, and that's where we were sending our women. But most women can't afford the
I
private
bet
service.
that costs money.
It does. And 70% of our population is uninsured. And the persons who are insured by virtue of employment. So if something happens to that job,
You lost
then you
it.
don't have insurance.
Wow.
Okay. So a lot of people were depending on the public service for mammogram screening, and they just couldn't do it after Dorian. And then COVID came and just pretty much canceled everything.
Yeah, I
Wow.
feel like we all became so concerned about the air we were breathing, we forgot about everything else. And you couple that with, you know, not going to the doctors, right? People told to
Right.
shelter in place, and it really created an atmosphere that was not conducive to wellness, not even sick care, but definitely not wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's how we started this show. You know, Mo and I started this show right at the beginning of COVID because we were talking one day and we said, so-and-so told me she wasn't going to get her mammogram. Well, so-and-so told me she wasn't going to go to chemo. And we started looking at all the people that were calling us saying, we're not going to go to the hospital. We're not going to get treatment. We're not going to do our, you know, do we have to do? And we're like, oh my God, we got to talk about this. And we did Facebook Live to talk about it. And we had like 800 views, remember, on my little Facebook page. And
I remember that. Yep.
then we said, gosh, there's got to be something here. And, you know, Black Doctor gave us this platform, but it was really just about women talking to each other about, you know, whether they should go to the hospital or not.
Yeah.
And
everything.
I found that interesting too, because at a certain point it became that they stopped doing mammograms because it only what was medically necessary. So you couldn't get your screening mammogram at some point during the pandemic, you know. And of course, we saw the screening rates drop here in the US as well. And so when we were able to come back up online, I'm sorry, Nakia, I was just kind of in the conversation, but
I know,
Yeah, go for it.
yeah.
Space.
So I think trying to re-engage women, and when we were able to come back out and do mammograms and say, look, these are the things we're doing to make it safe for you to have your mammogram, trying to get some of those women back in that were coming before. But like you said, it's such a difference in a place where you don't even have access to a machine versus we have a machine here, and still trying to provide access where it may be something that's financial. But I also hear a lot of things for fear. It wasn't just the pandemic that, you know, the fear of COVID, but it was financial fears. You know, what if you find something there? How are you going to help me with that? I barely have money to pay for rent, or I'm the sole provider. So if I find something, how are you going to help me with that? So there are a lot of things coupled with the fear during the pandemic and after. But for me, I'm the breast educator at one of at Dallas County Hospital, Parkland. And so we are kind of like the safety net in this county. And so when we have women that are underinsured or uninsured, this is where they look to come to get their mammogram. So the role that I'm in is fairly new. It's only about 2 years old. So coming into this, I was looking for a way to try to get patients, not just patients, but community, we just to engage with me and talk about, you know, why they're not having their mammogram or what's keeping them from having their mammogram. But going out into the community and actually talking to patients, the know your lemons was something that was an attention grabber. Hey, what do you got? What do you have over there? What is that? It gave me an avenue to open up and open up the conversation and engage with women. So being able to just first start off and say, oh, this shows you the signs and symptoms of breast cancer. The know your lemons was something that was relatable. And then it kind of brought to, oh yeah, I should be doing that. Or maybe they hadn't even heard that they should be doing it. It attracted older women, young women. Either way, we were able to start the conversation.
So go back a second. What is Know Your Lemons?
Know Your Lemons is, I mean, obviously they have an amazing platform to speak to young women and educate on an international scale, but they have a really amazing app, right? And this app is an amazing space because one, it doesn't track any data. Most apps take a bunch of information from you. Right. This one does not. It really just tracks your period, which is so nice because your period really dictates when you should be checking your girls, right? I'm sure Dr. Mo can talk more about this, but it's that week after your period is the time where you're least affected by all the hormones that go on in your boobs and your body. So I think that's the best, or it is the best time to do it. And the app just really explains to you in a really easy way how to do this thing, when to do it, the signs of breast cancer. They have 12 signs on the app. And it's in an egg carton, which is so nice because you immediately see the egg carton and remember that there are 12 signs, right? And these lemons are such a nice way to think about this because, again, cancer is really scary. And there we go. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see it.
There it is.
Yeah.
But and I actually have some lemons upstairs. I can go grab one because they also have like lemons that have a lump in them, so you can feel them. And that's a really, really nice tool to have. I bring them to activations and things like that so people can actually feel that. I know when my mom was sick, she insisted that everyone feel her tumor so that we would know what it felt like. And so it's nice to have a simulation of this because not everybody has that and shouldn't. I don't want everybody to have a real tumor. Right.
I made everybody feel my tumor.
Yeah.
Men included. I want you to feel it. I want you to know what it feels like.
It's literally not even about you. It's like this is about like us saving more lives.
Right.
And so Know Your Lemons is just such a friendly way to approach this conversation. Again, we're talking about lemons, not boobs. So it has a wider age range than some other campaigns and different things, which I think is really, really nice. Because again, kids understand lemons and they understand what a lemon seed feels like, and they understand just these nuances that the lemon just happens to represent to be similar to the boob. It just is. So in terms of all the things that they found, the veins included, like all the different things. So yeah, it's just a really, really fun way to have this conversation.
Yeah. So
it allows I was going to say, Haley, it allows me to educate in spaces where, like schools where I may not be able to take like breast models or whatever. Some churches, even though I know some, it's taboo or people sexualize, the breast, but it's really an educational tool. But this allows me to go into those spaces, schools, churches, wherever, and it allows me to give education. So it is a really good tool to be able to go to different places to educate.
Men included. Men have a nice
this. Every second person about it has them. Every second person has a set, right? Like, I mean, can we just pause there? And really at least 2 sets of mammaries. I mean, I've seen people with, supernumerary nipples and more mammary glands, right? You can have them in lots of places, but everybody has at least 2, right? And we need to really, in our communities, in our churches, right? Can we not, there's enough of the world sexualizing our bodies, our young Black girl bodies, right? Without us doing it to ourselves. But where the healthcare, industry really went wrong, Aisha, to your point, a couple things. One, during COVID, we told people don't come for your screening, but come with something, come for your diagnostic. Well, who the heck knows what a diagnostic mammogram is and if you really needed one? So people had bloody nipple discharge. I've seen people with masses, people with nipples inverted, people with, lumps under their arm, not going to the doctor. And we failed. We failed miserably, focused on one thing and not talking to people about when should you go see the doctor, instead of just saying, you know what, don't come. So people didn't know what the difference was. They said, oh, well, my screening, I'll get that, in 3 months or 6 months or whenever outside opens back up. And we're seeing more cancers. And to the other point, the mortality, just like during the hurricanes, the mortality as a result of COVID with respect to breast and colon cancer, 10,000 more deaths because of those delays. Right? Because people's drugs got put on hold, because people's screenings didn't happen, because their surgeries didn't happen. And to the last point, it's so important what you're doing, because we told people don't do self-breast exams and don't get clinical exams. And now with this, it's like, who's on first? Because the American Cancer Society and many others said, you know what? Women are confusing themselves and they're scaring themselves and they're getting more biopsies and more imaging than they should. So maybe we shouldn't do it. And then we backtracked and said, okay, well, let's do self-breast awareness. So be aware of your breasts, but we can't really tell you to feel them on the first. And it's all very, very confusing when the reality is self-breast awareness means you should know what they feel like before your period. You should know how they feel during your period. You should know how they feel after your cycle. And we should be teaching people, but doctors don't even say, listen, let me show you what your breast exam. That's a normal lump. This feels like this. Here's what fat feels like. Whoever did that with anybody?
Right.
A lot of work to do.
But how do you know how your breasts look normally and feel unless you look and feel them, which is examining, right? I mean,
look at them, touch them, know what they feel like. And the whole thing though, it's so disappointing that so many young women get dismissed. They feel something strange. They go present with a lump and they're not Dr. Mo. There's some other doctor that just says, oh, sweetie, don't worry about it. Come back in 6 months and we're dead. We can't allow that to happen. And we have to equip. So these tools are so critical.
Yeah.
To people what they feel like, but you got to know it. You got to feel
some of the Know Your Lemons tools too. They just have some really awesome stories about women being able to say, because I brought this card and I was able to say, hey, doctor, this is of breast cancer. Let's just check for everything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to assume I have this thing, but like, this is clearly a sign. Let's check for everything. And like, so many more diagnoses have been found just because they felt like they could be a part of the conversation in a different way. And so I think that's when I was like, okay, you guys do the education. I want to do the education. Let's work together.
That just talking about that's the whole reason I got into this field, because my own, I kind of was talking with Irene yesterday, telling them the story about how I was dismissed at 19, having, left-sided pain and of course, going to the same little clinic month after month saying, hey, I'm in pain. Never got an x-ray or pelvic exam, any of those things. And 6 months later, I'm in an emergency room with a ruptured cyst on one of my ovaries, which I actually lost my ovary at 19, one of them. But I kept telling the doctors something's wrong. They would tell me, take a leave or take ibuprofen, whatever. And I never wanted, I feel like things could have went so much worse. I mean, I did lose one, but I got to keep one. But I never want another 19-year-old woman, 20-year-old woman, however old woman, not to advocate for themselves or go somewhere else until someone listens to you. You know your body. And just equipping women to know, like you said, how to have that conversation, what to say, and just so they can have those conversations and someone listen to them. So that's one of the main reasons I'm an educator.
Well, the thing that I love most about Know Your Lemons is this. For instance, in October of 2022, we launched this whole initiative, and Irene actually came here. Not Irene, Corinne came here, and she launched it with me. And we had this whole breast health expo, and we did kind of a Galleria style setup and we had the images suspended from the ceiling. We did the most, okay? And then we had 9 women who were trained in the Know Your Lemons curriculum. And so they had their stations. And so women would come in and view each of the different slides and converse with the Lemonista. And we had one particular woman who had come in there, and she said she had a bump on her breast for like about four weeks. And she saw that a bump was one of the signs for breast cancer. And she never thought in her wildest imaginations that breast cancer could manifest itself as a bump. And so that is what prompted her to go to her doctor. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She currently has one breast off, I think it's the left side, and she's in treatment to this day. And she thanks Know Your Lemon. And that one slide that said and told her that this could manifest as a bump. And she went back home and looked at that bump on her breast that was there for like about 4 weeks. Had no idea. Okay, so it's just the fact that new information is coming to the women here in the community, and they feel emboldened and empowered to act. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's when I knew I had something. I had a winner year. I had something good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that, because people don't know. They don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And, let me ask you this. So let me pose the challenging question of, as we're talking about knowing your lemons, we're talking about having access to mammography. What do we say to these young women who are too young for mammograms, even in terms of the rate of detection and the increasing rate of breast cancer in young women? How can we do better, I guess, is the question, in terms of helping young women to advocate, maybe not for a mammogram, but for that ultrasound, or getting that doctor to listen to them when the doctor says, oh, well, you're too young for a mammogram, you're too young for breast cancer. What's the good response, I guess, and what are we teaching people to say to combat that?
Well, I teach in my sessions for women who are under the screening age, that ultrasound is your best option. So they understand that. And then in the Know Your Lemons pack, they even give you a picture of the different types of breasts and the breast density in percentage. So there's an image of a breast that is 75% in density, as opposed to one that's like 25. And they get that just by seeing the similarities, why mammography is not the best option for them at that time. Okay, so that's something that even Know Your Lemons really tries to educate us on, so that we can pass that knowledge on to the actual patient. That if you find something, then mammography may not be the best tool for you, but ultrasound is. You do have options. So push for that option. And sometimes you have to be your own advocate.
One of the things that I also teach young women is to make sure they know their history. Because I think that's so important, being able to, like you said, we're finding having mothers having genetic mutations, being able to know what your history is and saying, well, hey, look, I may be younger than the normal screening age, but I have this family history. My grandmother, my mother, my aunts, we all had this, we've had genetic testing and it runs in my family. But not only that, also just making sure that they're equipped to know that, like you said, they can take that history to the provider. So if I've had this lump or whatever it is for a month, it didn't come, it's not around my period time, it's not related to my period. They have the medical terminology, or just the words to say to the doctor, to say, look, I know what I'm talking about. I know my body. I've watched this. It's not around my period. So basically just empowering them, educating them, equipping them to have that conversation with the doctor, even at a young age.
I love that. You have to, right? Because it's so quick to say, oh, well, it's probably just good. It's just fibrocystic. And I see it all the time. And even in my colleagues, and, I tell women to say, okay, so can we do some imaging to confirm that? Can we just make sure? Or if you got imaging and it was negative, or you did that exam and they're sending you out, so what should I look for at home? How do I know when to come back? right? Like get that follow-up question so that you know, and you're not just waiting 6 months for something to happen, but you can say, okay, so what change should I be looking for? And engaging it, just that simple question can sometimes help to get you in that room a little bit longer and set up follow-up imaging and get you locked into some more care and better care.
Yeah, and it just validates who you are and, what your situation is, if you can tell a story, but I think that's so important that, actually, because so many Black families don't want to talk about it. And as Mo always says, the secrets we're keeping are killing us, right, Mo? So I love some of the tools that we're putting together with you guys to make people, to help with those conversations
Yeah.
and say, grandma, who died of what, and like provoke her in a way or motivate her, kind of, it's that thin line of motivation harassment to get grandmas to talk and grandpas to talk. And, it's funny because my mom had stage 0 15 years before me. And when I got sick, I like interrogated her, Mommy, did anyone have breast cancer in our family? Like, can you think about it? Do you remember? Like, and she kept saying, no, I don't think so. And then one day she called me in the middle of the night because she remembered that her Aunt Louise died when she was 9. And my mother was 9, her aunt was 42. And so it probably was triple negative, but my grandmother never talked about it with her. And I don't know what jogged her memory that particular night, because I was just harassing her to remember her childhood. But she said, oh my God, she died at age 42. So it probably could have been triple negative. Who knows? Because she was so young. But the family didn't bring it up. They didn't talk about it. And she went back and started trying to look for pictures of her. We never really found anything, but we tried to put the story together. And then when I asked my great grandmother was still alive. My great grandmother lived till 102. And so I actually called her and said, oh yeah, Aunt Louise had breast cancer. Yeah. Your grandmother didn't talk about it, but she remembered. And
it's very interesting that the women in my family who have had breast cancer, there's Louise in their name.
It is.
All of them.
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. My mother is Louise. My middle name.
Yeah, they're all Louise. But I this idea that we need to talk to our families is obviously very, very real. It might not even, she's still bothering me about taking care of my health, even though I work for her and I'm with her all the time and we talk about health all the time. It's still like you have to reinforce these things all the time because the young women like myself can be stubborn.
I'm like, and we'll go to the doctor. What's wrong with you?
You know what I mean? We can be stubborn, but I think, as Dr. Mo, you made me think when you asked that question around, because well, first off, we do have a really awesome Unlock Your Her Story worksheet on the For Love of My Girls website. It goes through mom's side, dad's side. Obviously, we're talking biological here. We're putting some efforts towards making it a more equitable across family structure, because I know that there are so many different family types, but it is in process, and it is something that I think that women could take with them to the doctor, feel like they are empowered in the conversation because they have talked to their families about all different kinds of common Black diseases and ailments. Okay. It's not just breast cancer. So I feel like it's really all encompassing for us as Black women. No, but Dr. Mo, when you asked that, I was thinking like, what can I tell young women to do in this moment? And a part of me is like, I can argue any point at this point in my life. You know what I mean? Like I play devil's advocate all the time.
A philosophy major.
So it's just like, why do I not push back when you say just because you're a doctor? You know what I mean? It's just like, what's that moment when I say, oh, I'm not going to push back on you because you have this degree or this something, right? And it's like, no, I should, just like I do the same thing with my mother, same thing with my fiance. If I feel like I need to push back, I should push back on anything. And so I encourage all young women to like not accept any answer. Because if you feel the need to like provide any pushback, even if you feel the need to not, and you just want to play devil's advocate for fun to get some answers, like why not? Why not engage in the conversation in a way that's going to get you feeling like you leave with the information that you need to know.
Yeah,
I think it's hard though when you're sitting in that, exam room wearing a little piece of gown or paper gown or whatever you might have, right? And you're hanging out there waiting for somebody to come with their cold hands and do whatever they're going to do and then tell you what you need. And so I love the fact that you all are all developing these sorts of tools and questions to bring in advance.
Yeah.
right? Because I think that is the part that takes the most fear out of it. It's like, okay, even if you forgot what you were going to ask and you're feeling kind of sweaty and sort of nervous. Oh, wait, I have a list. I wrote this down. I wanted to ask about these things. Even if they went over them, you can cross them off your list. And I find that the best interactions I have with patients are when they come prepared with questions. And they're always apologize. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a few questions. No, don't apologize. Bring them. I want them. Let's go through them. But having that set of questions or dialogue or checklists, those things I think really, really do help.
Yeah.
Or
and
bring a friend,
bring
right?
a
I feel
friend,
like
yeah.
if you don't feel like you can have those conversations or you're going to be in the place to like, put like, just really advocate for yourself, bring a friend,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think that that's, it is super duper scary. It's still something that like I tend to avoid, even though I do the work that I do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I understand the fear around just being in a clinical space like that can just be a lot and overwhelming. And so I think bringing somebody is in a really, really great way. And then I also, Dr. Mo, you've now explained to me, because Nakia brought up the breast density, and you've now explained to me breast density in two different analogies that I think are really, really relevant. You've done the clouds and the television screen. And I think that it'd be nice to hear those as well.
Yeah, before we go there, we have a question from Mary Jo.
And that's for you, Ricky. You start with that one.
Okay, how do we help our children overcome their fear of the unknown? Ooh, so you know what? You gotta just tell them the truth. You gotta just be brutally honest, and you gotta explain it as brutally honestly as you can. And I think it's funny because I didn't tell Haley how sick I was for a while because she was away at school, and her dad didn't want me to disturb her and upset her, and so I didn't tell her. And when she came home and saw how sick I was, she was really angry. She was really mad because she felt like we were hiding something from her. And then she didn't go back to school. She stayed home with me because she wanted to be in control of the situation. So I think it was like, be honest, tell your kids, what you're up against, and it's a way, to me, it's just providing information, that you're arming them with information like you would teach them anything, right? Any kind of question, any kind of fear, the boogeyman, there's no boogeyman under the bed, sweetie. I think if you think about how you talk to your kids, brutal honesty, I think, is the best
Well,
way to
it's like,
deal with
even
it.
I taught kids for 8 years, and no kid wants to be babied, right? They all think they're an adult. They all think they're a big kid, or the next version of wherever they are. And so you kind of just got to level with them and not treat that, you know what I mean? I was just babysitting some old students of mine, and they were like, you're not babysitting, you're kid sitting. And they were very clear about this, because in their world, they are as big as they are, like this is as big as they've ever been. And so you kind of just got to level with kids. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter their experience or their knowledge about the topic. I think you just got to be honest, like you said, and just be super forthcoming. It's just a better way.
Yeah, and they absorb what they can. I mean, even, I always tell my Belle story, right? So Belle and I were in the shower. Belle's my 5-year-old granddaughter, and we just got taken our bikinis. We're in the shower, and my grandma name is Debbie. So Debbie, how come you don't have those things on your boobs that baby heart sucks on, her baby sister? And so, because I have no nipples, and so for the next hour, I explained breast cancer to her. She was barely 5. She wasn't 5 yet, almost 5. I explained everything to her, except for that I was going to die. I told her all the stories. I showed her pictures of my boobs. We talked about everything, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. And whatever she got, she got. Of course, she went to school and told everybody that her grandma had fake boobs, but she explained how she felt them and everything. But whatever. But you know what? I think they pick up what they pick up. They absorb what they absorb. But I think that if you don't tell them the truth, then you create an atmosphere of fear, because when stuff happens, they're not prepared for it.
Their intuition is already clearly seeing something, right? And people, these are kids. They're intuitive. They're looking. They're seeing. They're taking in everything. You can't not tell them what's up.
Yeah, I think Lakia, our friend Lakia, she has, I think her kids are like 8 and 11, so son and daughter, and she held it from them for like over a year, that she's metastatic. And finally, I think all her neighbors, all of her friends, their sort of friend group knew it. And so I think one of the friends overheard the kids saying, so that they came to a point where they had to tell the kids. And she said when they told the kids, they were okay. Like they,
Yeah,
I mean, they, I
everyone
think
survived.
they appreciated the information, and now they can be caregivers for their mama. So instead of hiding in the bathroom when she doesn't feel well, she can be honest about it and say, you know, mommy doesn't feel so good today. I'm going to take a nap. And so it becomes a family project, because you know that tumor in that body is not just your tumor, it's everybody's tumor. It affects the whole family. So you got to prepare them, and you don't always know, you know, what's going to happen, but you don't know what's
Yeah, I
going
didn't know my mother was dying. I would have rather have known at 7 so I could do what I could do, so I could be more mature, so I could bring her some soup, so I could feel like I was useful and helpful. And I think they tried to protect us. But you know, to the point of Mary Jo's question, it's like going shopping, right? Would you rather pull up to the register with a cart full of food and not know how much money is in your account, or would you and run the risk of being overdrawn? Or would you rather know how much money you have and shop accordingly and look for the discounts and make sure you can meal plan and make sure, like, when we know what we got, we know how we can move. And I think that's the biggest lesson there, is that, you know, detection isn't prevention, right? It's not going to prevent it from happening. So whatever's happening is happening, and we need to know so we can know how to move accordingly. And that's the part that we can control a little bit, you know, and I think it's so important.
Yeah,
I really agree with that, Dr. Mo, because that's one of the things we're trying to combat is change the mindset. Because a lot of people I've heard say, you know, if I have something I don't want to know, I don't want to know. And
right, right.
and I'm just talking from my family experience, things that, you know, have happened in our family. And I started thinking, I mean, there's different generations of thought in my family. So for on my grandmother's side, and I think about this, it was you don't go to the doctor because they're gonna find something. If you go to the doctor, and I'm talking about on my maternal side, because most of us women, we kind of guide the healthcare in our families. So this is passed down to my mother. This mindset is passed down to my mother. And then you have her growing up with this mindset of, you know, we don't really go to the doctor unless something's really wrong. Then you have me, the why child, who was like, why? Why do we not? I became interested in different things, healthcare, and why we don't do this and why we don't do that. I began to take information to my mother and say, we should be doing this or we should be doing that. And I think it's one of those things now I'm trying to teach women our outlook really matters, to our family, like our health literacy, because we're going to be teaching our daughters about themselves. So we have to have the correct mindset. And I think I always tell people, you're going to know sooner or later. And I always talk about the candy, now or later, the now later.
Now later, right.
You're gonna know now, or you're gonna know later. It's better for you to know now, because your treatment may be less, your cancer may be less aggressive, your survival rate will be higher. So why would you want to know later when it's more treatment, when it's more aggressive? So I just said that to say, it's important that we are careful with what we are teaching our kids and our outlook. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer maybe about in 2021. And she kind of got spoiled to me doing her mammograms. And as I moved into a different space doing education, for those 3 years, you know, I would say, Mom, did you schedule your mammogram? Did you schedule? Yeah, well, I'm going to get around to it. I'm get around to it. So the past year I said, well, you're going to come with me. We're going to do mom and me mammogram. And it just so happened that year they found breast cancer.
Wow.
In stage 0, it was ductal carcinoma in site 2. But for those 3 years that she didn't go get her mammogram, you know, I just think, what if I hadn't been not forceful, but just adamant that you're going to go with me this year?
Right.
You know, what would have happened? But that love of my girls, it's really goes beyond that. We have to have love for each other, and that means teaching each other the right things, educating, bringing new perspective that may not be popular in your family. You may
Right.
be the catalyst for that change in your family. So she's doing well though. 6 weeks of radiation, a lumpectomy. She's doing well, and she's a big advocate to make sure you do not skip your mammogram. So but yeah, what we're teaching our families, we have to be careful of that in our mindsets.
We do, we really do. And, even, I look back, and when I had my first mammogram at 40, I was actually just about to turn 41. And I said, and my mother was like, you gotta have it, you gotta have it, you're 40 now. And I was about to turn 41. And I had calcium deposits, and my breasts were so small. You know that table that they have the 2 holes in, and they sort of hang your boobs through them, you lay on it. My boobs didn't, they're so small. So they couldn't try to face. You know what I'm talking about. They tried to biopsy.
Okay.
Stuck me like 3 times, and the doctor said, you know what, I'm not going to stick you anymore because I can't find it. Your boobs are too small. So I ended up having surgery, and they removed the calcium deposits from under my nipple, my left nipple. But they never ever told me I was at risk for breast cancer. They never explained that a calcium deposit was a breast cancer risk. I walked out of there thinking I was fine. Like, I had no clue. And, I have an MBA from Cal. I mean, it wouldn't have taken much for me to understand that, but it was a white doctor's office, the best in Atlanta, supposedly the best mammography place in Atlanta, but they never said, okay, Ricky, be careful because you're at risk for breast cancer. So literally fast forward 15 years, and that's where my breast cancer was, under my left nipple, my triple negative. But there was no education about it. There was no conversation about it. Oh, you're okay, you're fine, you're good. We got him out by.
I think that's why we have to do this though, because I did partner with this author last week to do, it's called Power: The Rise of Black Women in America by Charity Elder. And she said, Black women have this secret sauce because we've been told for so many years that, but by our family members, by our mothers, like, the world's going to treat you like this, but I think you're this, right? Because I think you're beautiful. The world may not treat you like that, but I think so. This with Black women, we have this secret sauce where if we get a compliment from a Black woman, it's like, oh, that means something. Or like when I hear information from another Black woman, it's like, oh, that means something. We don't hear other people the same way we hear other Black
It's like
women.
the Breasty Club.
You know what I mean?
Breasty Club.
And so, yeah, that's why we have to have these conversations and tell people for ourselves, because there's just something so unique about hearing from someone in your community that looks like you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that there isn't just this empty vacuum if you're not talking about these things in your family. Aisha, you mentioned something really key, which is that there are myths that we perpetuate. There's bad information that we share in families, because I heard the same things growing up. Don't go to the doctor unless you're sick. And like, we didn't hear all the right things. And just because you're not talking about things don't mean that information is not being passed on. That isn't information you don't want shared. It's the wrong information. And I think we have to really work to combat that as well. So just because you're not talking about breasts and period don't mean that kids aren't learning about those things. Right? Just because you don't mention sex doesn't mean that people aren't having it and learning about it and talking about it in other spaces, and you don't know what they're saying. So we have to control those narratives.
We really do.
Exactly.
And
I think, yeah, and I think what you mentioned is so important, that also that a lot of times what I've found is we take for granted that women that are coming to have their mammogram are savvy, that they know what they're supposed to be doing the other months that they're not having their mammogram. And so here, where I'm at, the organization I'm at, women who are waiting to have their mammogram, they get education. I'm going to talk to them about doing their breast self-exam, what they're looking for. I'm using the Know Your Lemons, and I'm showing them the areas that they should be doing their breast self-exam. Most women will just be like, oh yeah, I do. Some women will tell me, oh, I do it. I do that. I know how to do that. And I'll say, okay, so you make sure you go underneath your armpit, you check all the way, down to your rib cage and back up to just under your collarbone. Well, why am I going all the way up there? So there's always an opportunity And I find it important to just not take for granted that women that do come have their mammogram know what they're supposed to be doing the other months that they're not coming. And also making sure that they know that your breast self-exam never ever replaces your mammogram. It's done in conjunction with. So like you said, there are some cancers you know, calcifications, you can't feel those. So you definitely need to make sure you have your mammogram. But I also want to teach women that it's more than just a lump. There's other things to be looking for. So know your lemons really helps with those 12 symptoms.
I think also to keep in mind too, that with Love of My Girls, we're talking to people who aren't old enough for a mammogram, and sort of getting them in the mindset of breast health, of Black breast health. And so they don't have a concept for a mammogram. You know what I mean? So it's educating them about just knowing their body and having those important conversations with the women in their family. You know, I think that that's where it starts. It really starts. So by the time they get a mammogram, they'll you know, they'll be prepared for it, and it'll be part of the something additional to their current regimen. That's what we want. We want them to have a routine. We want them to be checking their breast when they get their nails done or whatever.
Well, there are so many things that we just like do monthly already, right? And so it's like, why not add this to your routine?
Yeah. We talk about periods. We talk about, you know, when, oh, okay, now you're of that age, you may be getting your period. Well, this is time to introduce this too, you know? I mean, let's put that in the conversation as well. You know, knowing if, you know, your breasts change, or you knowing what they look or normally feel like. It's not something that, like we said, is taboo, or this is not, we shouldn't talk about that. Let's include that in the conversation. My daughter is 14, and she has the Know Your Lemons on her stand. She has the little shower card in her shower. She knows. And she actually told me, this was maybe about a month ago, she's like, a girl actually told me that, and she said, I don't know why she told me, but she told me that she felt a lump in her breast. And I said, what did you say? She's like, that's funny, because my mom, she work, I don't know what all you do, but I told her you work with breasts. And and I said, well, did she tell her mom? And she was like, yeah. She said she told her mom, and her mom was going to tell her doctor, or tell her doctor, you know, to get her checked. But it's just important, I feel like, you know, let's introduce that into the conversation, because now she can take good information to her friends or whomever may come to her. But she was like, no, well, she already told her mom, and she's going to take her. But in the event that she didn't, she could kind of say, well, you need to see a doctor. But, you know.
I love that. Nikki, I want to ask you, do you come across a lot of women who are either afraid of mammograms or thinking that, you know, they don't want that radiation, or have other sorts of kind of misgivings about mammos? And how do you all, you know, do your education about that too? Because I find that we see a lot of that lately.
Yeah, we do have a lot of women who are afraid of the mammograms. What we have is women will have bad experiences, and then they infect the entire circle. Okay. So what we try to do is with the Know Your Lemons, explain that their timing is everything, and make sure they have a good concept of that breast cycle. Because maybe you're having a bad experience because you're actually doing this mammogram at a bad time. You know you have sensitive breasts on a normal day, but you don't know the best time to do your mammogram. You don't know the best time to do your self-breast exam. Okay, so we want to try to make the whole experience comfortable for you. So understand that timing is everything, and get that concept of that breast cycle down pat. Make sure you understand that it coincides with your menstrual cycle. And that is a real epiphany when I have my sessions, that most women didn't understand the whole how your menstrual cycle affects the breast. Okay. Wow. So, and we do have a lot of women who are afraid of it, and they are afraid of it because of what their girlfriend said. The experiences that they said. And I'm trying to explain to them that every person is different. Your breasts are not your girlfriend's breasts, and your experience will be different. Have an understanding of how your body works, and pick the best time to get your business done.
And for
Okay.
young women, I feel like there's so many birth controls and so many different things that are affecting these things. And it's like, for me, I just like for a while, I was like, oh, my period's coming the first every month. This is like really regular. And then next thing you know, it could come tomorrow and it's not the first of the month, because I looked down at my birth control and it's on like a 25 to 28 day cycle, right? Or it's just like, what I mean? We just have all these different things that come into our experience, given that like I've been on birth control for over half my life at this point, honestly, which is kind of crazy. Dr. Mo, let me that's okay. But you know what I mean? Like we have to consider all these things that we put into our bodies when you're looking at your breast cycle and your menstrual cycle and getting in tune with all these things. I think it's super important to acknowledge your irregularities, all the things that make up who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you're normal. That's huge, right? You're normal. It's different than your friends, different than your mama, different than your normal. And you got to take that time and make that time to know that normal, because somebody asked a question about dense breasts in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what do you do if the doctor tells you you have dense breasts? First of all, you can ask, what does that mean? And let that doctor tell you what dense breast means, because for some doctors they go by the feel. Okay, feels heavy, you got dense breasts. When you could have perfectly fatty breasts, right? But because they're heavy, he or she may think that they're dense. Two, if you do have dense breasts, meaning the amount of the tissue that makes the milk, the glandular stuff, you have a lot of that stuff, shows up white on the mammogram. Clouds in the sky, Haley, right?
Yep.
The density, you're looking for a thicker cloud than the other clouds in the sky. It's harder to see. You should be getting a 3D mammogram for sure, because the 3D mammogram gives you 9 slices. I tell my patients, I said, you didn't know your breast was in a movie, and I show them forwards and backwards, up and down. It's like literally in a movie, and we can review the breast layer by layer by layer. And 3, you got to know that family history, because maybe you should be getting ultrasound or MRI. If you have family history plus dense breast, you probably should be getting additional imaging. And so you got to kind of know all that stuff. But it just starts with the question, what does that mean, doctor? What should I do next?
I find that additional, and you tell a woman here in the islands that they need additional imaging, that kicks up the fear factor. Okay, the minute they hear, okay, we need an ultrasound, they automatically, oh my goodness, I got it. I'm just trying to make them understand that ultrasound cannot diagnose you. Okay, we just want a closer look to just make sure that you're okay. As soon as they hear ultrasound, they automatically think that they're positive.
And the reality is Black women have, on average, 30% denser breasts. So our breasts are harder. The mammograms make it harder to see. It's like static. I tell them static on the console TVs, because the old TVs my grandmother used to have, that snow on the TV screen. The more snow you got, the harder it is to see the picture. It's not that something's wrong. We just need to see it better. And so I think that we just have to keep educating. You're right.
Right, we're gonna show our quick little video before we close, and
Let's see it.
for the Love of My Girls website, GURLS, but you guys have seen this, but check it out.
Black women under 35 get breast cancer at 2 times the rate of white women and die at 3 times the rate. It's up to us to take care of our girls. The only solution is conversation. I choose Black breast health because protecting my girls means protecting all Black girls. I unlocked my birth story by talking with my family about our shared health history to know my personal risk. To know my girls as an act of self-care. Are you ready to get in touch with your girls? Visit loveofmygirls.org to get in touch with your girls.
So I also just want to shout out one more thing on the website before we close. If you do scroll down, obviously we have information for anyone in their walk of life, whether they are on their breast health journey. But if you do go down here, take our survey for sure. Give us some information so you can support the community. But if you are somebody who For example, you're over here where you do make the time to check in with your girl, where you just don't know how to check in with them every month. This will take you right here to the Know Your Lemons app, so you can check it out and download it and find the information that you need so you can do that regularly. But yeah, so thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. It's been so great. I think that like if we continue to have these conversations again, we have that secret sauce that we can share with each other and meet.
I know that's right. Black girl magic for a reason, huh?
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So how can people find and follow your organizations? Can we just throw out a couple hashtags, couple Instagram links and things like that?
Well,
Go ahead.
on Facebook, I'm Map Grand Bahama. On Facebook and on Instagram, and my website is map-bahamas.com.
MAP, M-A-P, okay.
MAP.
Love it.
Okay.
And I'm at Parkland Health Systems. So
Parkland Health Systems, we got it.
Yes.
That's awesome. And of course, Know Your Lemons is Know Your Lemons on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. And download the app, not just to track your period, but to learn so much about breast health, about knowing your body, about learning how to do this so it doesn't feel foreign or weird or awkward or any of those things, because it doesn't have to. Doesn't have to at all.
We're going to normalize knowing.
You gotta normalize it. You gotta normalize this whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's something that we just talk about, and it's no big deal. It's because it shouldn't be a surprise.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we hope this has been relatable and reliable and real. That's what we do every single Wednesday night here at 6 p.m. Eastern on blackdoctor.org. We're so thankful for the platform, for the sponsors. Ricky, you shouting out anybody?
Shouting out Amgen today, and I'm shouting out Triple Negative Month. It's still Triple Negative Month. Go to the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation website and see all the content we have there. And
we have a pink table talk on Sunday, and we have Dr. Candace Thompson, who's going to walk us all through a self breast exam. So I think that's really, really great. If you are somebody that needs just that, a quick instruction, you don't want to watch a video, you want to have somebody teach you. I know that's how I learned. So come and tune in at 3 o'clock on Sunday right here.
Yeah,
there it is, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Go to our website and put your email address in. You'll get our e-blast about all the information, or check our Facebook page and Instagram.
That's it. Catch the replay on YouTube. We appreciate y'all so much for this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, you guys. You gotta rock.
Bye.
Blessings.
Take care.